set up this space for newer nurses. Sometimes it's hard to get some guidance or mentorship on the common things that we nurses deal with. And this platform is providing experiential, lived experiences from the more seasoned nurses or certain nurse specialties, as well as not just the lived experiences, but some spiritual encouragement for newer nurses that deal with burnout. So I picked you two guys because you guys really carry your titles as nurses so very well. You operate in patience and just kindness. And so I feel like you guys are walking out what nursing truly looks like, not to let that the occupation overwhelm you and learning when how to balance it. So that's why you guys are here. So in
Thank
the room for our people who are coming in, I have Mrs. Anissa Womack. She's a board certified psychiatric nurse practitioner. Prosper Bloom is her beautiful business. She's excellent in tech and is knowledgeable in functional medicine, green medicine. I think she wears a lot of hats and wears them well. I also have Mr. Alfred Williams. He's a man of many hats, masters in everything. Psych nurse practitioner, family nurse practitioner, masters in education, military background. I mean, you've touched so many areas, and I love your mission when it comes to helping males. And so we got some real heavy hitters in the room. All right. So let's get started. So our topic today, we're talking about some common energy zappers that new nurses need to know about coming into practice. I chose this topic because I think that nurses don't feel the hit of the energy drain until years down the road. And nobody's saying, hey, watch out for this. Hey, it could be coming from that. So we're here to kind of guide them in a couple of areas that it could be coming from. So as they progress in their nursing career, they won't be blindsided. Make sense?
Absolutely.
All right. So I have two areas that we'll cover today. One area is compassion, excuse me, self-imposter, self-imposed pressure and perfectionism. And the other area we are going to cover is the hidden mental load. And I'll save that hidden mental load for later because that's a big one. Let's get started in the first one. And I'll start with Anissa for this first one. Al, chime in where you see fit.
Okay.
So, Anissa, with self-imposed pressure and perfectionism, how does perfectionism show up in new nursing? When you become a new nurse, how can perfectionism show up and become an energy zapper for a new nurse?
Trying to carry out everything we've learned in theory. Like, you don't really understand what it's like to be a nurse until you actually start working in the field. So we try to take everything that we've learned in a small amount of time in textbook, and we feel like we're just so afraid to make a mistake. Um, and that can become a heavy load because, you're just so worried about, like, what did I do wrong? Like, should I have double checked that? And you should just have these ruminating thoughts, throughout the shift for sure.
Mhm, mhm. I love that perspective because I think you're 100% right. Nursing school, they teach you how to do everything right, but they don't make room for what about when you mess up? Where do you go? And that it's okay to mess up, like how to mess up with grace, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. You know, I love that. What about you, Al? And I'll read the question again. How can perfectionism show up for a new nurse starting her career or his career?
I think that's a good question. I think one of the biggest things about it is understanding your parameters. Okay, you come in there, you're a new nurse. You may not have the experience another nurse may have that's been there 10, 20, 15 years, whatever it may be. But understand, okay, this is what I know. This is what I can execute appropriately. Because many times you don't know nursing until you actually do it, and you don't know what you don't know until you actually start getting involved in it. So giving yourself enough room to say, okay, perfection is not going to be the answer. I'm going to, what I do know, I'm good with my assessment, I feel comfortable with my assessment, then I'll focus on that, and then I'll focus on the things that I can increase my knowledge. So it may be medications, understanding my medications better. Each day, cut out a little portion to learn a little more, but having the perspective of doing everything perfect, not going to happen. I don't care how long you've been doing this. Always too many different nuances and things to
So
learn.
much.
So we just need to be patient with ourselves and understand. Take it in little bites. Take it in little bites. Understand the concept of what you're doing, and then try to increase your knowledge each day when you run into something new. That's the way I look at the perfectionism, because it's unrealistic. But
Hmm.
we read it a lot as students. We accept it and we want to do the best we can, but until you start doing it, I agree with Anissa. Until you start doing it, you don't really know, and you have to do this to really get a good footing.
It's impossible.
Absolutely.
That's a great point.
And I
So
would
what I'm
even
taking,
add, perfectionism can get new nurses in trouble too, because that fear of not wanting someone to know what you don't know and being afraid to ask for help, and then making the wrong decision on your own because you're trying to be perfect or appear as you know what you don't know. Yeah, you have to be careful with that for sure,
you
and
truly
ask
do.
for help. It's better to be safe. The main thing is to step away from feeling like, trying to keep up this facade like you know so much, and just put the patient first and know that you're doing what's safe for the patient.
Yes,
Excellent,
yes.
excellent
And I
point.
think as seasoned nurses, we need to make space for the new nurses to mess up with grace, right? All the things that you guys are saying, because I've noticed that fear, when they say nurses eat their young, well, it's hard to come as a new nurse to a seasoned nurse when you look mad all the time and you're just angry. So I think as seasoned nurses, we need to do better about making space for them to mess up and not bite their heads off. You like, oh, it's okay. We've done it too. Let's make sure the patient is safe and then walk it out from there. So
Okay.
Absolutely.
perfect. Perfectionism is a career killer. You can't do everything, learn everything. And like Al said, so many nuances, and medicine is always changing and growing. Like it can't, it's hard to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Good. Anything that you wanted to add to that, you guys? I think y'all pretty much covered it.
I think both. I think you guys hit on it. I like what you said. We need to kind of start making a culture a little better and open, and people feel comfortable with saying, "I don't know." And it makes healthcare a whole lot safer when a person say, "Well, I'm not familiar with this task. Can someone tell me exactly how?" That goes a long ways, and especially with safety concerns.
Absolutely. I have gotten comfortable as I've gone in nursing, I've gotten comfortable, yes, no, and I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's when you know your parameters, though. That helps, and I wish more people could understand that as an example of good nursing.
It is. It is. Awesome, awesome, awesome. This is hot. I love this. All right, let's go into the next question. I'll start with Alfred. How did you personally learn to give yourself grace in your nursing career?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Now, that's a tough one because it touches on a lot of different things I experienced. When I first got into nursing, it was a while back, and they wasn't used to many African American males, especially African. Oh wow, especially certain type of African American males that present themselves a certain way, not in a bad way, but more with confidence, but also, feeling strong about what they know. So it was pretty difficult in many ways. It was pretty difficult, and I got distracted. Can you ask that question one more time? Because I knew I had a point, but
Oh, absolutely. How did you personally learn to give yourself grace in your nursing career?
I learned to give myself grace in that because I understand that I was quite considered different. So I learned to sit down there and say, "Hey, this is what I do know. This is what I don't know. I'm going to work to the best, to the top of my skill level and knowledge level. And I also will, if that will partner up with someone that will help me to develop my skill, because I realized from the very beginning, as much as I studied, as much as I want to learn, it's a process of learning and growing. So that giving myself the understanding that I can't get it all at once, and hopefully finding people that's like-minded that can help you grow with it. That helped me. That's what
Yeah.
helped.
Yeah, that's a good one. I love that. Almost. What about you, Anissa? How did you personally learn to give yourself grace in your nursing career?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of what Al said. So one of the things is I had nurses that I looked up to that were more seasoned, and just being open to ask questions, because that's one thing I'm like always asking questions. You know, what I don't know, and I will ask a question in a heartbeat. And just listening to them, and I've even seen, I would see them asking questions, and
Mm-hmm.
just knowing, okay, even the person that I look up to that's a well-seasoned nurse, has seen it all, done it all, they're still learning, and they're still taking certifications, and they're still asking questions to someone who may know more than they do. And just
Mm-hmm.
knowing that it's an everyday process. We never really stop learning. We have to continue to grow in the profession, in the field. And just knowing that when you leave, nursing is 24/7. The
Mm-hmm.
next person comes after you, they have a duty to do. You can't do it all. I'll say I probably never truly learned how to give myself grace, because there are still days, but it's a practice. When
Mm-hmm.
those thoughts come up and it's like you want to be hard on yourself, like, did I remember to do this? Did I do this right? Just telling yourself nursing is 24/7. Someone else has it. Now it's my time to be off, and whatever I didn't do, I can, tackle it tomorrow, or,
Mm-hmm.
learn how I can do that better the next time. So
Yes, truly. And it is that's a big one. Even without when working in critical care, where the next shift can do it. Sometimes I was like, well, maybe they won't. And because I think that was that empathic portion of me, not that I'm an empath, but like that I care so much about the person. Like I want to make sure I gave you the best that I had while I was with you, right? And but also like you're saying, like be mindful. There are days, Deidre, that somebody else gonna have to get it. You're not saying after an extra hour, come on, go home, right? So that is definitely compassion and grace towards ourselves. I love that. I love that. Anything you wanted to add, Al?
I want to add something because both of y'all made some powerful points. I just want to add one thing. We still have to work on our culture of allowing people to make mistakes, and making it a comfortable environment where it's conducive to learn and feel comfortable. And because the one thing I did see a lot is some environments are not open for you to make a mistake, and that's where the pressure comes in place sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I want to add to that too, because the environment is very important.
Agreed.
Now, there are sometimes you work in an environment where you don't feel comfortable leaving the work, because you feel like, okay, I'm going to be reported tomorrow if I didn't get every single thing done. I think we need to start having more compassion for our fellow coworkers, to say, hey, look at what all they had to do today. They had these many admins, they had, all these things going on. Like, yeah, they didn't maybe get everything done, but I can step it up and I can go and hang that medicine for them. Or I can do that, because it's their time to go home. And I know that they'll do the same for me when it's my
Mm-hmm.
turn. So we have to
Mm-hmm.
start, having that team approach and having compassion, not just for our patients, but our coworkers as well.
Truly, truly. That's big.
Yeah,
I
agreed.
want to let that one sit in the room.
Yes. Compassion. We care about the patients, but sometimes where did it stop when we don't have compassion for our coworkers? That was a powerful point.
Powerful point. So I'm gonna click this question here, but my takeaways that I'm hearing is compassion, of course, for the patient, compassion for yourself, asking questions. If you can't do everything perfectly, like nursing is a 24-hour job, and also compassion for your coworkers. So everyone needs grace, right? So it really becomes a lifestyle in nursing of grace, extending it and looking to receive it too, because you give what you receive, or you receive what you give out. Usually, okay. All right, good. I'm gonna go to the next one. Okay, so let's talk about the hidden mental load.
Hmm.
So with the mental load in nursing, y'all know what I'm talking about without even breaking into it. Let's start with the new Anita this time. Define the invisible workload according to Anita in the nursing world.
It's the things that you don't think about, just constantly having things run in your mind. Like I was mentioning earlier, you have it's like having 21 tabs open in your mind on like what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You have to take on so many roles at that just as a nurse. We become housekeeping, we become, dietary, everything, because we just rise to the occasion and do what our patient needs for us at that time. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes it's just like always like thinking in your mind, like, did I forget to do something? And even when you go home, like you're still thinking
Yeah.
about, oh, I forgot to chart that, and so that takes a toll over time. It affects your sleep because you're
Yeah.
up at night with all these racing thoughts, worried about, you know, what you might have to do the next day or what you're going to walk into. Um, and so it could just become a lot, especially if you don't have a way to decompress and separate yourself from work when you get home.
Truly, truly. Do you feel like you've gotten better with that over time, or that is that invisible workload going home with you something that you still, or those 21 tabs in your brain, still something that you struggle with, or less? Like, what does that look like for you now?
Definitely less.
Yeah.
It always has the ability to, start coming up. And what I learned is just those ruminating thoughts will come, but you have to kind of cancel them out as they arise and say, nope, I'm not gonna do that to myself. I showed up as best as I could. I gave my best, and that's the best that I can do, you know.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
just it took time, just finding ways to decompress. Like one of the ways is just I've sat in my car so many evenings when I got off work, just listen to worship music, praying that I don't
Mhm.
go inside and take that mental load into my home. I
Yeah.
wanted to stay where it's at. I want to go home and have that peace. My home is supposed to be a place of peace, a place
Yeah.
of joy where I can relax and lay my head. And you don't want to associate, the stressors of work or life when you come home. So
I love that point that you made, learning how to separate the two. When I leave work and clock out, what's there is there. I'm going home, right? Beautiful. Say, what about you, Al? I'll restate the question for you. Um, how do you define the invisible workload in nursing? And I'm gonna ask you a little bit more detail that the new nurses aren't prepared for. They don't tell you about this in nursing school. What is that?
Wow. How do I define the invisible workload? A lot of the workload that I defined was really not just self-imposed, but it was imposed by, again, going back to the culture of, for example, you could have done the very best. I remember working on a med surg floor and having 8 patients, and while having 8 patients, you did everything you could. You ran, and you get off at say 11 o'clock. You get home at 12:30, and you get a phone call say, "Did you hang the medication or whatever?" The medication is already hung, but just the working and understand that some people are going to be aggressive, some people are going to be competitive for whatever reason. Some people are not happy. That's a spiritual thing that you can't really replace. But I've learned to be content with what I do and what I do my very best and and content when I make mistakes and accept the mistakes that I may make. Hopefully it's not
Mm-hmm.
major. Over time you gain skills and enough awareness to understand, okay, this is a little outside my parameter, but you know it's not going to be met until you really start getting a comfort level with what you can do and feel, because it's really rough. Now the new nurses is I seen a change almost in a paradigm where it's okay, it's accepted for them to do their work, but not do anything further. What I mean by that, I remember bringing students to a floor one time, and they had a patient, and she had what it was, colostomy, and but she had a GI bleed. So the student told me, I see blood, a good bit of blood in the colostomy. And I said, okay. I said, yeah, we need to address that and make sure we let the nurse know. So doing our due diligence, she told the nurse said, yeah, I already know that's her diagnosis. She have a GI bleed. I said, well, let me let the charge nurse know. Let the charge nurse, yeah, that's diagnosis. Now, no one ever took the time to go and look at the person. The GI bleed could open up and start bleeding out at any time. But because they were just comfortable with doing, maybe, I'm not gonna say the minimum of not understanding enough to sit down and take the, I don't know, a word might be take the time to go look and assess for themselves. They just took it for granted.
Mhm.
It's a different approach compared to when I was a new nurse, and a nurse that had been working years before come tell me, hey, you might want to look at this. It's almost like they're assuming that they know, and you're being overly cautious or overprotective or whatever. But
Mhm.
it turns back around, and it comes across in some cases as arrogance. But we have to, older nurses as well as new nurses, be open for people to come and be professional and question us and ask us, because that makes us better. But I found with some of my experiences with some of the newer nurses, they're not as open to positive, even with positive, not all, but even with positive criticism, and that's how you grow. You don't grow with just staying inside your own little circle and thinking you know something, because you don't know what you don't know until you get out there.
So, do you think that the new nurses, when it comes to the invisible workload, because of their method of work now, that they don't really carry that because there's a little bit of a detachment from the person and more attachment just to what's on the screen or what's in the chart?
Yeah, well, you articulated that better than you articulated it better than I would have came across saying. But a lot of it has to do with, this is a microwave generation, so they boom, 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 they want everything, and they're not necessarily looking for the reason why. They're not necessarily looking for the extra step. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you want me to pass these meds? I pass these meds. I did my job. I
Mm-hmm.
might have one dressing change. I did that. So what else? You're now looking to sit down and say, well, let me look at the labs to see where else. Let me look at the changes that's occurring with the assessment from today to the next day. Is there any changes, or whatever it may be?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is quick, fast, boom, microwave and done. And I understand that, and I fall into that sometimes myself. But
Mm-hmm.
it's important to be able to stop back and get an overall picture, go a little deeper, so you do have a better understanding on how you give care. But it takes a certain amount of effort, and it takes a certain amount of opening yourself up to go a little deeper. And this is a different generation, so
You're
that
making an interesting point here. You're making it, and I never thought about this, but I'm going to pull something else out of what you're saying. Because we don't ever want to cast a wide net over all of the newbies.
of
Some
course,
of them,
definitely.
but we can see in the age of social media that there is a little bit of some detachment. And what I'm hearing that could be that could happen by proxy or byproduct is the more seasoned nurses harboring more care and concern and more of a mental or invisible workload because of some of the behaviors of the newer generation. And so we already have it innately within us. And now watching the lack of concern from some of the newer ones, bringing more on our mental plate for what we're seeing. That I never thought about that.
That, and I really, what you made a powerful point. Now I definitely see that, because some people are comfortable with, hey, it'll get the, and you know how you said it ends at whatever time my shift is. That's true, but we also need to walk away feeling like we did look into it, get the best care we can. You know, just passing pills is not necessarily nursing. That's not the whole spectrum of
We
nursing.
have what do they call those med passes? What's the old school? They used to do have those anymore. The I can't remember what they used to call them, but their only job was passing meds and insulin, nothing else. I don't. Yeah, we
I
have
think
to
it was
be
a
more than
med
that.
pass tech or
Something
yeah,
like that. Yeah,
They,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's
they,
we're dating
they,
ourselves.
they have those at our nursing homes. Yeah, but
Okay, okay, great point. Okay, well, I'm gonna move on because I want to ask this next. I think I have two more questions, and then we'll wrap because I think just in these two topics alone, and I have like eight or nine. Um, we've covered so much ground on some of these energy zappers in these certain areas, especially with this mental load. And I'll add too on the area of the invisible workload, the emotional part. I think I needs to cover the mental. Al, you covered the spiritual. I noticed that I was carrying my work home with me emotionally, and I didn't have anything left or not enough left for my children and my spouse. And so I recognized I was more snappy. I was more like numb and tapped out. I just watched somebody progressively die for the last 8 hours and the weeping in the room and like that emotionally drained me. And then having to come home and hear, Mama made an A on my test. And it's like, oh, that's great, baby. Like I'm trying to pull it out after. And so that's a place too, the invisible emotional space. So being mindful to separate mentally, spiritually, and emotionally work from home. Like there's a different way you got to show up in those areas as a nurse versus as an individual in your everyday life. So that's another area I just want to throw out there too.
that's true. That's
Mhm.
excellent.
All right, here's my next question. I'll start with Al this time. Um, here's a good one. With so much constant decision making and vigilance that we have to practice as nurses, how do you personally mentally clock out after your shift? You know, we have to be on watch for everything 24 for 12 hours, like da da da. How do you shift out of that when you come home where you're not watching your child's respirations or you heard them say I'm sad and you go into psych mode? Well, tell me about your feelings. Like you go, they become your clients. And I said all the time, I look at them like, I am not your patient. Just you
That is
can't turn it off.
extremely difficult to do sometimes. For me, what I did when I felt I was in that place, I wouldn't just go straight home. I would take me a ride,
Okay.
give myself about 20 minutes or whatever. And I'm gonna make you laugh because I remember as a kid, I used to see the older guys and they would work these jobs. Some of them was really, really tough jobs or physical jobs or whatever it may be. But they would always hang they had what we call like a watering spot where they'll hang under a tree or wherever it is, and they would have a couple of beers and they would unwind. Having a place, having something that you could unwind. I'm not necessarily talking about self medicating, but having a way that you could unwind, whether it's taking a, instead of, if I had a long day, I would ride a little, maybe 30 extra minutes, just ride around the city to and that helped settle me. But finding something that you could do that could help bring you down,
Yeah.
because leaving directly from work, you might not want to see your children, and you want to see your children, but you want to see them in a good place. So I get that extra time to sit down and say, "Oh, just kind of decompress or whatever you might want
Mhm.
to say to, so that I get ready to for their next episode with my son." So that's what I did to kind of keep myself balanced. I was just
Mhm.
all right, but I needed time to decompress, gather myself before I walked into father mode, family mode.
Mhm. Sounds like you put like a buffer in between. Like I like that decompressing with a buffer. I'm gonna have to take that off.
Yeah.
I'm telling on myself. What about you, Anissa? Read the question again. With so much constant decision making and vigilance as nurses, how do you personally mentally clock out after your shift?
Yeah, and I kind of touched on this earlier too. Sitting in my car sometimes for 2 hours before you go inside, just trying to get your mind right. But also, just sometimes telling myself, I'm not doing anything else that requires me to have to think.
Mm-hmm.
But they
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they call it like sofa rotting, where you just sit on the sofa and you watching your favorite shows and you're
Oh
not doing anything else until it's time for bed.
I don't even know what I'm watching, but it's on. Yes, a good one, a
Or
good
it's
one.
watching you, like my grandma used to say, it's
Okay,
watching you.
and not feeling guilty about sofa rotting. You
Hmm.
know, like I'm doing what I need to do to be present. Give me 30 minutes, y'all, and I'm gonna come. So that's
Absolutely.
good. That's good. Okay, so we're closing out. I'm gonna give you one each a rapid fire closing question for you guys to answer. We'll close out and go from there. So who did I start with? Anissa, I'll start with you this time.
Yay, I'm the lucky
Um,
one.
no. Um, what is one piece of advice that you would give to a new nurse who already feels drained?
um, Definitely start getting out like what you're feeling. Find someone you can, talk to that about. Talk to them about like what you're experiencing, whether that be, you know, someone that you trust, like at church, um, some type of mentor, even therapist,
Yeah.
don't hold all of that in. You need a
Mm-hmm.
way, some way to channel it, even if that's just through prayer, may be a way, talk to God for sure. That's the number one
Absolutely.
person to be talking to.
Absolutely.
But then
24/7.
outside of that, if it's something that you like to do, like some form of expression, whether that's, some people like to paint, some people like to, express themselves through music,
Mm-hmm.
poetry, even like getting out in nature. Just find a way to offload, all of that burden that you're carrying. Because if you don't, you will end up burnt out and it does not look pretty.
You will. Something you pulled out that I wish someone said to me earlier. I learned that with social workers, they're taught a therapist, they're encouraged in school to get a therapist.
Mhm.
And I found that so interesting because I was like, they don't tell us as nurses or first responders or healthcare providers, get a therapist in school. It's an automatic, get it. And what they realize in therapy, you're incubating so much, you have to get an outlet. And they don't teach us that. And I got it later on, but when I got it, it has been a blessing to me to have a space to spill it all out and, no judgment there. So all of your recommendations were excellent. Love them, love them, love them. All right, Al, I got your last question here. Um, I want you to direct this to the male nurses because that's your specialty.
Okay.
What's one energy zapper you wish you had known about sooner as a black male nurse? Let me go a little deeper.
Wow. Energy zapper.
Mhm.
Okay, okay, the characteristics that other people may look at is leadership, confidence. Many times, if an African American male come across with those same confident or whatever, it will be considered to be arrogant, aggressive.
Mhm.
And I've seen that in many cases. And you could be right as rain, but that part I would want people to understand that don't lose your confidence in what you know just because maybe the group isn't, and I tell that to a lot of brothers, maybe the group isn't receptive of it, but stay in your place of what you know, continue to try to build yourself because everyone isn't going to accept it. Those same characteristics that you carry as an African American man could be burdensome. I ain't even saying it right, burdensome. But for African American male, because we are not generally looked at as a person that can lead and implement ideas and things like that. So, from my own personal experience, that's what I would tell someone coming in there
Yeah.
as a male.
I think that's powerful. It's like a me against me conversation. I can't meet all of you guys' expectations. I'll wear myself out. And so your version of leadership that you created for me, what my standard is my standard, and I can't try to meet everybody's. It'll wear you out. So that's definitely an energy zapper. Trying to meet so many other people's expectations. And I think that's across the board. That's powerful.
Yes.
Powerful, powerful. Okay, well that's all I got. In closing, I just want to, if y'all make sure open the room if you had anything else to add or say in the conversation.
I will say this is something that's needed. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate hearing those viewpoints, different viewpoints. We don't have many safe places. We have the traditional things that we do in orientation and stuff, but we don't have many safe places where nurses can talk about their perspectives on topics like this. So I appreciate what you're doing.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Absolutely. Me
Thanks.
too. I've enjoyed this conversation and just hearing the different perspectives. It takes you back to like, when you were a new nurse, and then you just really think about, what some of the new nurses are going through now. And it makes you, have that heart for, that desire to have a space where people can come and talk and share their experiences, as well as, have a heart for what they're going through. So I think it's good that we all understand each other and what stage of our journey that we're in, and we can work together to help each other. You with the tech, and you might need a little tech help, but you got some lived experience in the nursing world that you can pass on to the next nurse. So it's like all about coming together as a whole and working together.
Can I throw one thing into?
Absolutely, absolutely.
One thing I will say also, lesson, find something that you really enjoy too. There's so many different aspects of nursing. I worked at a lot of different places, but when you work somewhere that you really enjoy, meaning the type of nursing that you really enjoy, it takes a lot of stress off you because you're really into it, you really enjoy it, it gives you energy. So that's all I want to say.
Don't go too deep because that's one of my follow-ups. The environment that you're working in and actually finding your true motivation and passion so that you're in the right places. Because when you're not aligned with that unit, aligned with that hospital, aligned with that specialty, it will exhaust you and drain you because you're trying to put a square block into a round hole. It just won't fit, and you're tired of trying to push it in. So that's a great point. We're not gonna go too deep. That's a good one.
That's a part 2 conversation right there.
That is definitely a part 2, and it took. I'm not gonna say how long it took, but yeah, that's a part 2. That's definitely a part 2. Well, I got so many gems from you guys in this conversation. Giving grace to yourself, being patient with yourself. Nobody knows it all. Some things that we can do when we're just feeling overwhelmed and drained. Like, I took away a bunch of gems, and I love that as a seasoned nurse, I wasn't alone in my experience as a baby nurse. I experienced it too. Well, we'll close out. I want to thank you both so much for your honesty and wisdom and transparency today. You didn't have to. And if there's one takeaway that we'll leave for the audience is that we want to learn how to manage our energy as nurses, especially new nurses. And it's just as important as managing our time. Managing your energy is of high importance. It's important to protect your energy, and it's not selfish, right? It's what sustains you in the profession. You got to have the morale and the energy to keep going, but if it keeps getting nicked away at, eventually you're just like blah. And to everyone who joined us on the live, thank you for being here and for the work that you do every day as nurses. We are a community. And if we can learn as seasoned nurses to extend grace and compassion, as newer nurses, it's okay to ask us questions. I think we'll meld together better as a community and have that golden glow and light on us as a profession that is, I think is there, but can shine brighter. So thanks again, Anissa and Al. You've been a blessing. And bye, guys. That's it for tonight. See you later.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.